The fact is that it's equivalent of 7 Super Bowls happening every day in Los Angeles. So that's a lot of people. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of people to move around.
It often feels like you have, in the run-up to a game, there's a lot of talk about, this will deliver huge infrastructure benefits for our city, and that's one of the things that cities like to talk about when they're bidding to secure games. And sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't.
What a great opportunity to use the games to both inspire and help accelerate and motivate people to take advantage of this moment to provide lasting investment that isn't about, stadia or arenas, but is about creating more economic opportunity and accelerating equitable climate action.
Hello and welcome to The Energy Gang, a discussion show from Wood Mackenzie about the fast-changing world of energy. I'm Ed Crooks, and on this show we're going to be talking about the Olympics. The 2028 Olympics and Paralympic Games are going to be held in Los Angeles, and that's of course both a huge challenge and also a huge opportunity for the city's infrastructure. To discuss that challenge and the opportunity, I'm joined by Matt Petersen. Matt is the president and CEO of LACI, the Los Angeles Cleantech Incubator. Hello Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Ed. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, great to have you. So look, we want to talk about the Olympics, as I say, in a moment. Before we do that, one of the things we always like to do when we get new people onto the show is talk to them a little bit about their background, the career paths that took them to the roles they now hold. Perhaps before we do that even, could you tell us a little bit about LACI? What is it? What do you do?
Great question. So the Los Angeles Cleantech Incubator, our mission is to create an inclusive green economy for Los Angeles and far beyond. And we were founded in 2011. It was really an outgrowth of an economic development initiative of the city of LA. At the time, Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa wanted to make LA the clean tech capital of the world, building on the legacy of the aerospace industry and other industries and engineering based industries in Los Angeles, and really embraced this opportunity and worked with the city partners and agencies to manifest where I'm sitting. You can't see it, but this campus that's 60,000 square feet in the middle of the Arts District, which at the time was a neighborhood you really wanted to be careful about walking around. It had been historically an area of manufacturing, and the building we're in actually was the warehouse where furniture that was manufactured across the street was stored before it was sent out to retail stores to be sold to customers. And so this place is a place where entrepreneurs gather, investors gather, policymakers gather. So we really use this beautiful campus as a catalyst, and then do our work out in community to do 3 things: help unlock innovation by helping the startups, and lots that we could go into there. We provide access to capital. We have a debt fund. We have a sidecar venture fund. We give them access to pilot funds. The city of LA allows us to provide the sweat equity to lean in to help these companies. Our other programs are market transformation. How do we really transform markets by recognizing that policymakers send market signals to entrepreneurs, and then bring the public and private sector together to accelerate progress around shared priorities in responding to those market signals, as well as informing them for the future. And then last but not least, and the third piece of our holistic approach is enhancing communities. How do we bring in the workforce that's underrepresented, train them in green technologies, and then we place those graduates into paid internships with our startups. So it's really a microcosm of the green economy we want to create in the world.
Right, got it. So what about your story then? How did you get interested in energy and sustainability, and what was the path that led you to that role you now hold as president and CEO at LACI?
Yeah, it's, everybody has their own unique origin story. For me, as a kid, my dad, when he was still alive, would tell this story to anybody who would listen, as a proud father often does, is wax on about something about their kid. He would tell the story. We were in the park on a Sunday afternoon, and it was a busy weekend. And he said, I think I was 4 or 5 years old, and there was trash everywhere strewn about. And he said, I looked up to him my dad and I said, Dad, we got to do something to take better care of our planet. And I have no recollection of this, but as I look back upon things that are embedded in my memory around that age, I remember my older brother, who was 9 years older. He made a Super 8 film that must have been around the first Earth Day. That was in the early 70s. That was he shot. I remember vividly the tailpipe emissions. The emissions from a jet plane flying overhead back then, where I grew up, Modesto, actually had jet plane service, and that stuck in my brain. And I mean, there are other aspects around that time as a kid that I remember really just like didn't sit well with me and didn't make sense. Why were we polluting? And I jump forward to when my son was around the same age and we were driving. At the time, I drove a Prius. And he asked me as he was strapped into the back in his kid's car seat, he said, Dad, if people know how to make cars that aren't stinky, why do they make cars that are stinky? And, from the wisdom of babes, it really is true. And so I mean, as a father, of course, I do this work for my son and in future generations, that how do we make sure humanity can not just survive on this planet, but thrive? And that's what motivates me. So over the course of my career, there was a lot, obviously, between the 4 or 5 year old kid in Modesto and where I'm sitting now here in the Arts District in Los Angeles, but working in politics and my parents both being in public service, my mom active in Democratic politics, my dad an educator and a public servant for his entire life. Certainly shaped me, and along the road, the way the people that I worked with and worked for shaped me in a way that really took me in this direction in this career. And I think what cemented it though was after I ran. When I went to grad school, I wanted to get involved in running a nonprofit after working in politics, and got this opportunity to run a nonprofit a month in, and it was an environmental nonprofit working to stop this radioactive waste dump in an unlined dirt trench near the Colorado River that could have made tritium get into the Colorado River and then pollute this water supply for 20 million people. And that was the beginning of my professional work directly in the environment, but what really cemented it was towards the end of that role. I got connected with an amazing woman named Diane Maraj-Semen, who Mikhail Gorbachev, the former head of the Soviet Union, had asked to help him start this environmental organization called the Green Cross in the United States, and that was in 1994. And so that really kicked off the 30 plus years since that I've been working in the environmental space.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about Earth Day all those years ago and that kind of event sort of starting you on this journey then many decades later, planting that seed that has now grown into this shows what kind of an impact those things can have if they catch your imagination at a young age.
Absolutely. I mean, it does. You never know what nugget might stick in someone's brain or touch them. So that's why, one of the reasons we do this work is hopefully you can touch someone's life and then they go off and do great things and you're just cheering them on and following their lead.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me about the Olympics then. So as I was saying, the 2028 Olympic and Paralympic Games will be held in Los Angeles. What is your involvement there?
Yeah, number one, I'll just say really upfront, LACI has no formal role in the 2020 Olympic and Paralympic Games. That is the role and responsibility of LA28, the organizing committee. Yet we have been hard at work using the fact that the world is going to arrive in 2028. Millions of people will be coming to Los Angeles, and during that time, as LA28 leaders have said, the fact is that it's equivalent of 7 Super Bowls happening every day in Los Angeles. So that's a lot of people. It's a lot of energy. It's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of people to move around and things to move around. So it's within that is an opportunity to use the games as a catalyst. So that's why in 2018, a little less than a year after I got here as CEO of LACI, we really embraced that opportunity and said, let's create a public-private partnership to work together to see how we can accelerate progress around transportation electrification. It's a that transportation electrification touches every part of the economy, and it's as it transforms our economy really, and how we change, how we move goods, how we move people, so we set about the work of setting a goal. At the time, we said we wanted to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by a further 25% beyond the 2018 baseline, which we set as, at the time, Jerry Brown's executive order he released that year, did the modeling, played with the dials and knobs, and set a series of targets that we've been working towards with the public and private sector involved. And at the table were, of course, the electric utilities, Southern California Edison and LA Department of Water and Power, LA DWP, which is actually our landlord and core partner here at the campus. And then the Air Resources Board, the chair, then it was Mary Nichols, a legendary climate leader. And we sat in a room along with the mayor of LA and other partners and said, let's do this. And we attracted automakers, Nissan, BMW, BYD, and then later companies like Audi and others. Rivian have joined us along the way to say, all right, well, this is the largest urban auto market for every one of these OEMs, LA. So what we do here matters. California is the most important regulator, although that's obviously being challenged from efforts out of Washington right now. But the fact remains that this is still, LA is the third largest metropolitan economy in the world, within the fourth largest economy in the world, California. And what we do here matters from a early adopter perspective in terms of scaling. And so that's really the spirit of what we brought together with the Transportation Electrification Partnership and the work we began in 2018. And then later looked with the Clean Energy Partnership, how do we set the targets around making sure we have the power that's needed, the clean energy needed to power the transformation that is transportation electrification, as well as building decarbonization, ensure grid reliability. So we set a number of other targets in that process for clean energy.
Right. So to be clear about that, then, when you think about the carbon footprint of the games as a whole, it's going to be transport that's going to be absolutely critical to that. Is that right?
Yes. I mean, look, the biggest footprint of the games are going to be is air transport by far. I mean, then you look at the movement of goods and then the movement of people once they're here. So one of our partners in the Transportation Electrification Partnership is Metro, which is the regional transit agency that is building out historic levels of funding, using historic levels of funding for building out the light rail and subway system, as well as bus system in Los Angeles, and they'll be responsible for the bus system that takes people from a park and ride location to the final destination, the venues. And we're working with them this summer during the World Cup to pilot a couple solutions. One is a shading structure that how to help people as they wait for the bus be able to stay cool and during periods that are likely going to we're going to see extreme heat sometime this summer here in Los Angeles. We're already seeing it in different parts of the country, of course, and around the world right now. But like, how do we do that? And then mobile charging, where we can't get permanent charging into these parking lots that there's a lot of people showing up to park their car, that if they have an EV that they can plug in and have a charge when they get back. So we're working hard right now to see how we can accelerate the final deployment of infrastructure, both using the World Cup as an opportunity to pilot different solutions and then lean in to accelerate the final deployment of infrastructure and investment in Los Angeles in these next 2 years.
Right, because when you talk about the electrification of transport, then that is very critically, is it the electrification of private cars? I mean, obviously, when people think about LA, they think about it as a great city, as you say, one of the largest metropolitan economies in the world. It's also a great car-based city. Driving in LA is famous. The traffic in LA is famous. And realistically, then, if you're talking about electrification, that has to be the main focus, does it, rather than trying to build out more mass transit public transport of any kind.
Yes, and I mean, look, we're our ability as an organization, even as powerful of a convening power we do have as a nonprofit here in Los Angeles, we single-handedly can't build out the transit infrastructure. There's $120 billion being spent, funded by a sales tax measure that my former boss, Mayor Eric Garcetti, led and championed to really accelerate investments, building on a previous tax measure that the previous mayor, Antonio Villaraigosa, had championed. That is historic levels of investment that I mentioned earlier. Yet, to answer your question, Ed, is our modeling showed that, yes, if we get to 70% of all the cars sold to be electric by 2028, that 40% of the medium duty delivery trucks were electric by 2028. If 60% of those trucks were electric, 40% of the drayage trucks, the heavy duty Class 8 trucks that pick up the goods at the airport, the port of Los Angeles and Long Beach, were zero emissions, we still wouldn't get to that GHG target. So we have to get people out of their cars and into transit. So just recently, a new line opened up here, the D line. There's been a lot of the Metro and others have had a lot of fun with the D line. They ride the D and take your D pics, and they've been really having fun with it. But it is incredible, the extension of that line to different parts of Los Angeles. Rode it. Is a lot of fun. You can get to the new LACMA Museum, this iconic new museum that just opened up in Los Angeles. It just really does open up new possibilities. Now, we still have that last mile, first mile challenge in Los Angeles, and that's why making it easier to walk and bike and use metros, shared mobility systems. That's why we're piloting with community partners solutions in South LA with public housing, the Public Housing Authority here, doing EV car share pilots, doing e-bike share pilots. How do people get from that last mile, first mile, or to use a primary source of transportation if they don't have access to adequate transportation? And just a sidebar on that, like, this is not about the GHG side, but this is really about the economic opportunity side of our work. In Los Angeles, because of what you just said, it's a place known that you need a car. If you don't have access to adequate transportation, to get to a job for some families, somebody might have to spend 2 hours on the bus, and have 3 connections because we're still building out the transit infrastructure. So how do they get access to a reliable car? Well, that's why we've been piloting this EV car share program with the Housing Authority of Los Angeles and one of our startups that we incubate called, this now an alumni company called Envoy. And so we've been looking at all these things. So it's a long answer to your question that, yes, at the core is we need to get more EVs on the road, get more charging ports in place. And we've made great progress on that side. And we need to, of course, get people out of their cars and into transit. But the last piece I'll just share that most people don't realize is that 40% of all the goods that come into the United States come in through the Port of Long Beach and the Port of Los Angeles. And that is a huge part of our economy here. And it is the largest source in aggregate of air pollution, and therefore correlates to more the largest, if not the largest, source of greenhouse gas emissions, depending on the source. So those are diesel trucks. Those are the ships that are powered by bunker fuel, the dirtiest fuel used in the world. You've got the cranes and trains that move the goods. So there's a lot of pieces here in LA, not just the cars that we're known for so well for.
Right. And as you were saying then, you at LACI are not specifically responsible for the sustainability strategy of the city, what happens in terms of transport policies, where transport investment goes, and so on. So what you are doing is supporting private sector companies that are coming up with these new innovative ideas for doing things better with improved environmental impact and so on. What are the key companies then that you're supporting in this, and which ones do you think sort of imagine a visitor coming to the Olympics in a couple of years from now? What are the things they might notice the most?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think one of the things they'll notice is that they will be riding transit one way or another, because there's going to be the LA 28 and the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, and others have said, we want this to be a transit first games. I think making it a transit only games was originally put on the table, but that's going to be difficult to execute. So the idea is that we make it as easy as possible and as difficult as to get on transit to the games venues, and as difficult as possible to park at the venues. So that means that people are going to ride transit one way or another. So that riding these new transit lines, I think, will be hopefully one of the great experiences that people come. Like, I always thought LA was known for cars and traffic and a lot of swimming pools and green lawns in the middle of the desert, quote unquote. They'll experience great transit. They'll see EVs all over the place. It used to be you'd see the Toyota Prius everywhere. Now, of course, it's the Tesla. Certainly west of the 405, as we talk about, one of the great delineating lines in LA is the 405 among other freeways and interstates. It is, so those are the aspects, of course, but they're also going to see a lot of charging infrastructure, which is visible, where the Ubers that is, working to accelerate the electrification of its entire fleet, where Waymo is charging their vehicles. One of our corporate partners that's part of the transportation partnership, Volterra, is building out fleet charging depots to charge those Waymos that people get into. They'll ride maybe their first electric autonomous vehicle might be here in LA, and sort of seeing the future in the place of California, which is the land, as I said earlier, of early adopters, where our policy is so far ahead of the rest of the United States and much of the world, that has set the market signals to entrepreneurs, whether it's Elon Musk or one of our startup founders, Jackson Alvarez and his partner, Bill Beverly, who are creating a company called Evo Electric that is taking medium-duty trucks and electrifying them cheaper than someone can buy them as a new vehicle, so that smaller businesses can afford to transition to zero emissions of future, while creating jobs here in Los Angeles. And so that power of the California regulatory framework, of LA's leadership, of our can-do entrepreneurial spirit here in Los Angeles, that pioneer spirit that is embodied in Los Angeles and California, is really what we want to have on the world stage. A lot of it, obviously, they won't see. There's the solar and battery storage systems where we've seen explosive growth. We're about to release a paper that shows that about $10 billion have been invested since 2020 into clean energy, into transportation electrification infrastructure in Los Angeles. They won't see all of that, but some of it they will see, and I think they'll be hopefully impressed. And for some Americans coming here, be like, "Wow, this is really great. I actually want to get behind the wheel of an electric car. I want to put in solar and storage," especially after we were on the tail end of the Iran war and the incredible spike in gas prices, and a lot of people complaining about that gas price and seeing the ROI on electric cars.
Yeah, absolutely. And still, even though it looks like gasoline prices are going to be coming down because of the peace agreement in the Middle East, that possibility for prices to spike very high, and the implications then in terms of the cost of transport for everybody and the cost-benefit calculations of owning an EV. I think, as you say, that's very fresh in everyone's minds right now, and I'm sure still will be in a couple of years. So let's just think a little bit about the sort of barriers and obstacles that you face then. Of course, notoriously, when any city hosts the Olympics, there's always stories about how difficult things are and issues with construction projects and things being delayed and issues with bureaucracy and whatever it might be. In terms of your thinking about the goals that you have for the Olympics, and in terms of reducing emissions, improving sustainability, and so on, making a better visitor experience for everyone who attends the Games, what are the key challenges for you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think a couple things. One, when I was working for Mayor Eric Garcetti, I served as Chief Sustainability Officer for his first term. I was the first such person in that role. First time that role was created in the city, and the first person to serve in it. And he made a move early on to bid on the Games for 2024. And at the time, there's a long story to how LA became the U.S. candidate for the Games. Originally it was Boston. There was a lot of public outcry there to push back, and LA had already bid, and when they were asked, they said, "Yeah, we're ready. We'll stand behind what we said we'd do." One of the original concepts, like could the games be powered through a virtual power plant sort of solution with solar? And so there was always obviously thinking about sustainability, but the core really piece of both the economic equation and the sustainability argument for LA's bid is that we don't need to build any new facilities. We have everything we need. We've hosted the games 2 times before. That was really the argument. Yes, the transit and transportation systems would need to be figured out, and that would have a cost, but no permanent facilities. Now, there's some temporary investments that people can read about that are being made to adapt facilities for the use, and just as we're seeing with FIFA, they put in the places that are artificial turf. They put created a new infrastructure on the floor of the stadium to put in the natural turf for the game for the World Cup. Similar things are being done, and there's some temporary facilities, I think, for volleyball being created. But to be able to use existing facilities, that also meant that the organizers went outside LA. So they're doing a couple of the games, sporting events in Oklahoma City. Some of the soccer or football matches will be played in venues around the country, as we're seeing with the World Cup. But really, back to the core of your question, it's that we already have all the infrastructure. So that's number one. Number two, we won't get to probably 100% of all the power that the games venues needs. It's not a public commitment of anyone involved with the games delivery, but there is a real commitment to figure out in California and LA, how do we accelerate and get as much clean energy online as possible? So LACI was the only nonprofit involved in the Games Energy Council that was part of the agreement with LA 28 and the International Olympic Committee, was that City of LA would form this Games Energy Council. There's a similar Games Mobility Council. We co-chaired the Transportation Electrification Committee to really look at how do we accelerate progress. Now we've created a tiger team with the utilities, Department of Water and Power, and the City of LA, figure out how we get the final wave of charging infrastructure projects online for every major charging operator is involved in this tiger team. So the City of LA is really rolling up its sleeves to figure out how to get the charging in place. We're working with the governor's office, Governor Newsom's team, and the administration and our state agencies, see where they can move money and fund projects that meet the eligibility requirements of their existing programs to help get more charging infrastructure online, to enable more EVs, to support the electric school buses that LA Unified School District is committed to deploying and providing a healthier experience for the bus drivers and the kids in doing so, and cleaning up air for everyone. So those are the kinds of things going on. The final thing I'll say, though, is Paris got the nod for 2024. And Mayor Anne Hidalgo, who just left office, did a phenomenal job. Like, she is one of the great climate leaders of any mayor that we've seen in a long time. Yet one of the powers of the Paris mayor are pretty significant and able to shut down streets and do the diesel ban in the inner core. And of course, there are a lot of people I know that didn't like what she did, but the delivery of electric buses of creating cleaner air is palpable. You look at a heat map of pollution before the work she did and after, and it's night and day. And so the health conditions of prisons have changed as a result. LA is, the city is 4 million of 10 million people in this region, and just in the county, and the region's larger. So the mayor of LA controls just that part of the region. There's 87 other cities in the county, and there's 1 million people that live in the unincorporated areas of the county, meaning the county serves as sort of the city of services of the region. So that's a lot of parties to bring together. And that's one of the things that we've done through our transportation partnership, our clean energy partnership, is bring utilities and municipalities of Culver City or the Pasadena Water and Power, or Burbank, or Glendale, or Santa Monica to be part of our solutions and really get creative. That's like we did the first zero emissions delivery zone in the country with the city of Santa Monica, where before the pandemic, you would have all the mobility solutions, e-bikes and the non-docked solutions, scooters, everything just showed up there. So we said, and then the e-commerce explosion was going on. So we created this zero emissions delivery zone with Santa Monica, and we learned so much from that. And other cities around the country have begun to replicate those learnings through our National City Climate Innovation Challenge that LACI launched. And anyways, get ahead of myself, but it is complicated to really get everything done in LA, and because of that. But LA, the 2028 games is really bringing the region together like we haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I mean, you mentioned Paris, as you say. The mayor there took some pretty radical action. I know they claimed very impressive results in terms of emissions reduction. I think they said there was a 55% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions for the Paris Games compared to the average of previous recent games. I know Los Angeles is a very different city. The Los Angeles metropolitan area is very different for the reasons you've been describing. Is there anything specific that you saw in Paris or that you've seen from other games recently around the world where you've thought, oh, actually, that's really good. This is an idea we want to adopt. This is something that we could really learn from them. Or anything for the World Cup, even, I guess, in North America, Mexico, the United States, and Canada. Are there things you're learning from that to say, this is really good, this is something we need to do for the Olympics as well? When I worked for the mayor of LA, we looked at that question of how do we increase access to reliable transportation for first mile, last mile solutions. At the time, we did a pilot of a EV car share program, and the one place in the world that had really done that, and one of the pioneers, in addition to London, on bike sharing systems was Paris. And so we were able to go and see those systems, and the EV car sharing system, Autolib, it was called. It was run by a company at the time called Bolloré, out of France. And really, in that during the same trip, we rode the first electric transit bus any of us had ridden on, and that included, the now CEO of Metro, Stephanie Wiggins. Like, that's incredible. What a different experience! The less the vibration, the less emissions, the less reduced the noise, and then just the increased, because in all the LA Metro buses, there's no windows in the back because the natural gas engines of the newer models that are running currently as they transition to electric take up the back, and there's no back windows. It just was like a totally different experience as a transit rider, so much better. And so I think those sorts of things, inspiring, and there are other places you go and learn from to take those ideas and steal them, adopt them, improve them, however you want to describe it. And so that's going on all the time. And that's sort of both what we're trying to do with our Road to 2028 initiative, but also our City Climate Innovation Challenge. We're working with the City of New York that is looking at the indirect source rule that our South Coast Air Quality Management District put in place for the warehouses that are going on in the Inland Empire. This explosion of truck traffic and pollution and in neighborhoods led to an action to an indirect source rule, meaning that they gave the Air Quality Management District the ability to regulate the emissions and require, the Amazons and the DHLs and the UPS and FedExes and all the others to reduce emissions, to invest in electric trucks, to improve the air quality. And New York is modeling that for the city of New York because they've had a similar explosion of warehouses in the middle of neighborhoods in Red Hook and Sunset Park and Brooklyn. And so modeling the solutions that cities and regional entities see in different places is so important. And we're seeing that going on, of course, towards the 2028 games. And the other thing that we're doing, I've talked about sort of the Tiger team and about the city and the utility and the governor's office and the state. Like,
where else can we roll up our sleeves and figure out how innovation and collaboration can unlock solutions? So one of the things that the games are doing is that Southern California Edison and DWP are looking at something known as flexible interconnection, meaning, let's say, Ed, you got a company that they're going to put charging infrastructure in at a location, and you need 5 megawatts of power, but to start, on a regular basis, you probably are going to use 1.5. But if you had to wait in the interconnection queue and get that service upgrade and both the time and cost of that service upgrade, it could take 3 years, maybe longer sometimes, depending on the situation with the distribution grid there. How can that infrastructure come online sooner? So flexible interconnection allows utility to do it with more certainty. You're going to have to curtail power use during certain times when there's peak demand and more stress on the distribution grid, but you can then operate and open it while you wait for that full power load and service upgrade you need eventually. So those are the sorts of innovations we're really seeing here that aren't super sexy, but are really transformative if you know how challenging it can be to wait in an interconnection queue and work through those thickets to get to delivery of the project.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Exactly what's being talked about, of course, quite often for large-scale data centers and getting them connected to the grid and saying, well, you can do that so long as you can be flexible load, kind of extending that model down to, as you say, much smaller loads, just a few megawatts.
The whole data center part, you're right, is obviously taking that to the next level. We've been talking about flexible interconnection for a few years now, but in the last year, it's become more of a common conversation to get data centers online across the country.
Yeah, no, indeed. No, but certainly, very interesting. As you say, a lot of the issues are the same in terms of kind of when you have more load to add to the grid, but also strain on the grid, and you need to work out how to manage it, and you have a grid that is not, of course, used at 100% all of the time. And so you're kind of planning for the peaks, and flexibility to help ease strain on the grid during those peaks is really important. As you say, whether it's, I guess, 500 1 megawatt loads or one 500 megawatt load, right? Principle is the same.
Yeah. And we've seen this, of course, this is not a new concept now, but several years ago, we began to see battery integration at the project level for charging infrastructure to do the same thing. How do they manage the load? How do they get the system online sooner by using more of a trickle charge, so to speak, to charge those batteries, and that they're available to discharge when there's higher use at the charging depots. We have a couple startups that are doing that. One is Spark Charge that has a mobile charging solution that can be used for flexible needs or charging on demand for roadside service. Another one, Electric Fish, is doing a high-speed fast charger DCFC with 350 kilowatts that is, one unit and battery integrated, and reduces your, infrastructure, power up, and not just the power upgrades, but the permitting of, digging a trench and running the wires and lines, and so finding more turnkey solutions. It's not new battery chemistry, but it's more innovation around the integration and deployment of solutions that we're seeing some exciting things.
So I suppose, in a sense, that is one of the answers to the question I'm about to ask, which is about lasting legacy from the games. It often feels like you have, in the run-up to a games, a lot of talk about, this will deliver huge infrastructure benefits for our city, and that's one of the things that cities like to talk about when they're bidding to secure games. And sometimes that works out, sometimes it doesn't, and the occasions where it hasn't worked out, obviously often attract a lot of attention. In terms of the work you're doing for Los Angeles and the changes you're trying to make, what can you do to make sure that there are permanent, lasting improvements that the people of Los Angeles, the residents of the city, are really going to notice, say, in the long term?
It's a great question. I mean, I think for the region, again, back to Metro as our primary transit agency and other smaller transit agencies in Santa Monica or Culver City or other municipalities, and the city of LA through the LA DOT's Dash system, which are, the smaller buses. So Dash is using the games 2028, and they committed to this through the mayor of LA through our transportation partnership, is to get as many electric buses online as possible. They're about about to hit 400, so about a little more than half of their fleet will be all electric. Right in front of our campus here is a terminus of one of the lines, and it's primarily electric buses. And so we'll see that. So that sense of urgency to get these assets deployed before the games are a legacy opportunity. I think that's certainly true, as I mentioned, around charging infrastructure. The piloting of solutions that could be more permanent, given LA is experiencing extreme heat for longer periods of time due to the climate crisis. How do we protect people who are dependent on transit and want to ride transit to be safe when they're waiting for the bus? A lot of our transit stops don't have adequate shading. So other than just sort of building a shading structure, how do you do that to make sure people are safe? The city of Phoenix, not here in LA, but just we were talking to them recently about the extreme heat they're facing, periods of time where it's over 100 degrees Fahrenheit for weeks. And same thing here in LA. Many parts of the region get hot for long periods of time. How do we invest in, of course, tree planting and infrastructure? And one of our at our Road to 2028 Summit, we're going to have, and there's some exciting announcements, including around green infrastructure for commitments to action that really show lasting investment that the games are making happen that benefit communities, frontline communities that experience a disproportionate air pollution that affect the lungs of the young and the old most tragically, and just really the investment of solutions that are going to benefit these communities. Charging infrastructure for heavy duty trucks, like we're trying to get a bunch of about $50 million of projects done in partnership with regional agencies that can be online to power electric trucks. And with the Tesla Semi hitting the roads, we're going to see, despite Trump administration taking away California's right to regulate truck fleets, private truck fleets, you're going to see people investing in that because of what we're hearing so far about the great performance of the Tesla Semi, and that will get out their OEM. So with the acupuncture approach on the charging infrastructure and keep projects getting online, that means more electric heavy-duty trucks will come here and use that infrastructure, providing better air quality. And so when people arrive in LA for the games, that we want the legacy to be clean air, not just clean air for the several weeks that the games are underway here, because we are likely to face extreme heat during the games that affect the performance of athletes, the health of visitors, the health of local residents, the health of kids playing soccer in parks during the public leagues that happen all summer. What are we going to do to make sure that that's not just a clean air during the games as we saw in Beijing, but becomes a legacy of the region? And that means we need to invest in our communities, in the infrastructure, in the vehicles, in, of course, the transit systems. And that is something that we're really trying to do, is accelerate and get both to help those investments get landed and new ones to come in these final 2 years through our Road to 2028 initiative, sort of taking more of a public-facing platform. And so why we're excited. The NBA All-Star and entrepreneur Russell Westbrook is joining me as co-chair of our Road to 2028 initiative to bring new voices and perspectives into this effort and help deliver more benefits to community and get that lasting investment, the economic investment in our community in Los Angeles that shows how it can be done and hopefully inspire others to follow our lead.
Absolutely. And I do think it's an interesting phenomenon. You've seen it with other Olympic Games, seen it with World Cup actually just recently, is that in the run-up to the event happening, there is nothing but negative publicity and people complaining, and everyone kind of focuses on the difficulties and the challenges. And then when the event actually starts and there's great sport to watch, then kind of the mood flips completely and everyone kind of realizes what's great about the games. And of course, that reflects the enormous amount of work that's got in behind the scenes that people like yourselves and all these others have done in order to make them work, in order to make the games a positive and pleasant and enjoyable experience for everyone who attends. And I'm confident, I'm sure that'll be the same with Los Angeles in 2028 as well, that it'll be a great event when it happens.
Well, we want to have the world experience as great air quality and an amazing experience with all the incredible clean energy and transportation and electrification and infrastructure investments and transit investments and safer streets in Los Angeles. We want that benefit. That's our primary driver is really what I'm about to say is like, we want that benefit for Angelenos and the region for decades to come. And, what a great opportunity to use the games to both inspire and help accelerate and motivate people to take advantage of this moment to provide lasting investment that isn't about, stadia or arenas, but is about creating more economic opportunity and accelerating equitable climate action.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And certainly it is a fantastic opportunity for that. Well, it's been fantastic talking to you. Unfortunately, we do have to leave it there, but thanks very much indeed, Matt Petersen. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Ed. Great to be with you.
Many thanks to our producer, Molly Merwin, and above all, of course, many thanks to all of you for listening and for watching. We really value your feedback, so please do keep that coming, and we'll be back very soon with all the latest news and views on the future of energy. Until then, goodbye.